They put him in Ward 9 because Ward 9 was where we kept the ones nobody expected to walk out of. It was the farthest room from the loading dock, the farthest room from the front desk, the farthest room from anywhere a supervisor might wander in on a slow night and ask questions. Ward 9 had a door that latched from the outside. That should tell you what kind of clinic I worked in. Out at the edge of the Kessery transit line, patching up whoever the freight runs dragged in, and asked no more questions than we had to. I found him the way you find most things worth finding, by accident, at the end of a shift, doing a job nobody else wanted. He'd been dumped near the loading bay 2 nights before, half buried under a tarp somebody had thrown over him, more out of embarrassment than mercy. Iron slate scales, cracked and salt-crusted along one flank, one wing torn nearly through at the joint, and his eyes, both of them, clouded over white, the kind of white that doesn't come back. Somebody had done that to him on purpose. You could tell by the evenness of it. The intake report called him a fugitive, said he was dangerous, said don't get close, don't talk to him, just keep him breathing, until the Judiciary Wing sent someone to collect the body, one way or the other. I've been a nurse for 22 years. Nobody's ever paid me enough to just keep a patient breathing and call that care. So I talked to him, first night, second night, third. I didn't ask what he'd done. I told him instead, told him about the wind picking up over the docks, about the freighter that came in late smelling of ozone, about the coffee in the break room being burnt again, small things. The kind of things you say to fill a silence rather than because they matter. He couldn't see me. I don't know if he could smell much of anything past the antiseptic, but on the 4th night, when I came in with his water, he turned his head toward the door before I'd said a word, and I understood he'd been listening for my step. His name, when he finally gave it to me, low and careful, like a man testing whether a bridge would hold his weight, was Doran. He didn't offer a bloodline name. I didn't ask for one. Weeks went by that way. I dressed the wing wound, kept the salt crust clean from his scales, brought him broth when the kitchen would spare it, and my own bread when they wouldn't. He never once told me what had put him there. I never once needed him to. There's a kind of trust that doesn't require the whole story, just the part where you show up again the next night, and the night after that. Some nights he talked more than others. He asked, once, what color the sky was that evening, and I told him it was the kind of bruised orange you only get out past the shipping lanes, where the exhaust haze catches the last of the light and holds onto it too long. He said he used to know that color, said he'd forgotten he missed it until I described it back to him. After that, I started telling him the sky every night, whether he asked or not. Flat gray, hard blue, that 1 week of storm green that had every freighter grounded for 3 days running. It became a kind of ritual between us, the two of us, in that latched room, me describing a world he couldn't see, and him listening like I was reading him something sacred. Other nights he was quiet in a way that worried me, not sullen, just far away, the way a man gets when he's replaying something he can't undo. I learned not to press on those nights. I'd just sit with the silence a while, change his dressing, tell him the coffee was burnt again, and let him come back to the room on his own time. He always did. Somewhere around the 3rd week he started asking after me instead, how my shift had gone, whether my back was holding up from the lifting, whether I'd eaten. It surprised me the first time. A man with nothing left, in a locked ward, worried after the hired help. I told him I was fine. He said, "You say that whether it's true or not," and he wasn't wrong, and I didn't have an answer for it. So I just laughed and told him the sky was clear that night, more stars than usual, and let it go at that. By the 8th or 9th week, I'd stopped thinking of him as a patient in any way the intake report meant. He was just Doran, the dragon who liked knowing the weather, the one who thanked me every single time, even for the small things, like it cost him nothing to remember his manners, and he intended to keep spending that currency for as long as he had it. It was deep into the 9th week when the enforcers came. 3 of them, judiciary marked, wings folded tight and formal. The kind of dragons who walk like the floor owes them something. Their lead carried a writ, sealed in black wax. HFY Judiciary Wing. Condemned fugitive. Sentenced to be carried out on sight. No further proceeding required. I read it upside down while she held it out like she expected me to be impressed. He's blind, I said. He can't run. He can't fight. There's no sight left in him to run from you with. There doesn't need to be, she said, not unkindly. Just tired. Like this was the 11th such door she'd stood at that month. The writ doesn't ask what's left of him, only what he did. Doran hadn't moved from the cot. I don't think he could have, fast enough to matter. But he lifted his head toward the sound of her voice, and what struck me, what still strikes me, was that there was no fear in it. Only a kind of exhausted patience, like a man who has been waiting so long for a thing to finally happen that its arrival comes almost as relief. Don't trouble the man, he said to me quiet. He's only the one holding the bucket. Let them do what they came for. I didn't move. I want to say it was courage. Mostly it was just that I'd spent 9 weeks making sure this particular patient kept breathing, and I wasn't in the habit of undoing my own work. I put myself between the cot and the enforcer's raised claw, and when it came down it caught me instead. A raking line across my forearm, deep enough to see bone white for a second before the blood came up to cover it. It hurt less than I expected. Mostly it just knocked the wind clean out of me. But it bought a few seconds. That's all a body's really good for, sometimes. A few seconds. Bought at cost. Handed to whoever needs them more. And in those few seconds, a fourth dragon came through the door. She was smaller than the enforcers, plainer, no formal wingfold, robe still dusty from travel. She held up a hand, not a weapon, a folder, thick with paper, and said one word, wait. Her name was Sarah Vantal, first advocate of the same judiciary wing that had signed Doran's writ, and she had spent 6 weeks quietly unraveling the seal that condemned him, a forged authorization, a rival judge's hand behind it, a debt Doran had once refused to look away from in his old courtroom, and that rival had never forgiven him for. She laid the proof out right there on the clinic floor, while I held a pressure bandage to my own arm with my teeth, because both my hands were shaking too hard to be useful for anything else. The enforcers lowered their claws. The writ, black wax and all, went into Sarah's folder unopened. Doran didn't cheer, didn't demand the rival judge's head, though I understood later that judge would answer for it through channels far quieter and far more thorough than anything I'd have chosen. Doran just sat very still on the cot, blind eyes turned toward nothing in particular, and said, 12 years, like he was setting down something heavy he'd been carrying so long he'd forgotten it had weight. They offered to move him to a proper judiciary infirmary, marble floors, real physicians, the kind of care Ward 9 could never match. He asked, instead, if he could stay where he was until the wing healed enough to fly on his own. Sarah didn't understand it. I think I did. They gave me a token for the arm, a small iron disc, judiciary struck, the kind worn by those the HFY line formally calls one who stood. I don't wear it on duty. It catches on the gauze wraps too easily. And besides, I didn't do it to be marked for it. Doran's still with us, 6 weeks on now. His sight won't come back, some things don't. But the wing's mended enough that he can hold it open on his own. And some mornings, when the shift changes and the light comes flat and gray through the loading bay windows, I find him out there anyway, just standing in it, feeling the warmth on his face like a man remembering what warmth is for. I keep a chair by Ward 9's door now. Nobody asked me to. It just felt like the kind of thing you leave out for someone who might, one of these nights, want to sit and not be alone in it. He still doesn't tell me the whole story. I still don't need him to.